Login accepted. Now initializing.
Hi, I'm Andre Faust. Welcome to this episode. This episode will show you how to clear your browser's cache and how to download and install the Tor browsers. The question that was sent to me focused on a Mac and a Safari browser, but the techniques that I will talk about can be used on any browser, any operating system. It's pretty straightforward. For those who are experienced, you know how simple it is. For those who aren't experienced, it might be a little bit of a challenge. Not too much of a challenge, but a bit of a challenge. Anyway, I received a message in my Facebook message box from Truman from down Mexico way, and he writes, "Hello, I'm on a Mac. Do you know how to get rid of these sites that I cannot remove that say database and seem to be on my hard drive? I'm not sure of what I'm asking, but I do not like these sites that I have visited attaching themselves to my computer." Well, the answer is really quite simple. Just clean your cache out, clear it out. The question is how to do that, and that's what I will show you. The first thing I'd like to point out, though, is even though the question sounds scary, is that all that stuff that is downloaded really is harmless to you. It can't really collect any personal information or anything like that. And it'll become clear when I speak about cookies. But for now, you just got to know that they're not necessarily bad things. Now, back in the old days, oh boys, I'm going to give my age there, because I was around when the internet first started. Trust me. And yes, back then there was some issues about things being downloaded onto your computer, especially JavaScript. The computers of the 80s and 90s were very vulnerable to that, but that's because the browsers were very primitive at that time. But since then, browsers have evolved and evolved and evolved, and now browsers can pick up footprints from any JavaScript. So if somebody tries to put something onto your computer, in a language, there's only a certain syntax, and the browser is smart enough to pick up on that syntax and say, whoa, this is bad stuff, and it just doesn't let it through. That's today's computer. So with JavaScript, don't lose any sleep over it that, some bad things will happen. The other things that get loaded onto your computer are your HTML, your hypertext markup language pages. Those are web pages, the pictures associated. There's some links that also gets included in the download, and this is what Truman referred to in his message when he said that he found websites attaching themselves. Those websites were probably located on a site that he visited, but again, those within themselves are pretty inert. They're not going to do much of anything. Other things that are downloaded onto your computer are the cascading style sheets, otherwise known as CSS. Those sheets that creates the visual appearance of a web page, whether it's pretty or it isn't. It depends on the person who designed the cascading style sheets. Those are pretty inert as well. So let's go on to cookies. What are cookies? Well, cookies are little pieces of text code that gets loaded onto your computer. And in most cases, they're there to help you, to make life a little easier. like the files that get loaded on your computers. What that does is those files that I had mentioned that were loaded, what that does, that saves your computer from having to re-download them the next time you visit the site. Well, cookies work kind of in the same way. You have three kinds of cookies. You have the session cookies, and that one there just lives long enough while you're on the site and then dies when you close the web page. And those cookies, they're the ones that you find on online shopping. They're the ones that keep track of what you've put in your basket before you say approve and you go to the pay thing. Those ones are very, very short-lived. The second kind of cookie is the persistent cookie. Unlike the session cookie, they survive long after you've shut your browser down. And those persistent cookies, those are the ones that keep record when you do a login or you authorize some credentials. But the law is surrounding those, and I can't say for sure if it's international, but here in Canada and United States, the law is that after 6 months they have to expire, so they can't go on indefinitely. And that's your persistent cookie. And again, those are useful cookies for when you come back to the site. You don't have to remember a whole whack of stuff. The cookie takes care of it for you. And it's a way that those cookies are totally useless to somebody else. Then you have the tracking cookie, the pain in the hiney, the pain in the patoot cookies. They're the ones, you go searching for, let's say, a camera. And after you do your first search for a camera, you're always seeing advertisements coming up about cameras. That's these tracking cookies, these third-party cookies. They're not harmful in any way. They're just a nuisance. If you can identify them, you can remove those, individually. But there is, a lot of misinformation about cookies. Cookies do what I just said they do. Nothing more, nothing less. That's it. They don't reveal any personal information about yourself. Where you run into problems is when you download software you don't know the source from, or even if you know the source. Because a lot of cute little tricks that happen out there. I may be putting out a piece of software that I'm going to offer for free on the internet. Meanwhile, 4 or 5 other vendors come up and they say, look, Andre, if you bundle our software in with yours, we'll cover your expenses and give you a few dollars to put in your pocket on top. So I bundle 4 or 5 different pieces of software in my one software, and I put it on the net free, and I put all the lures to attract your attention, so you download my piece of software. You, the user, goes and download it. Well, there are two kinds of people in that business. There's the legitimate one, and then there's the dark, shady one. The legitimate one, when you press on download, they will ask you if you want to download the bundle. Sometimes you have to read quite carefully, but it's there, but you do approve of it. The second kind, the dark kind, is that it just doesn't. And a lot of time that malware, adware, is for the purpose of collecting marketing information or super saturating you with advertisement. But I repeat, this is where the potential of downloading Trojans, keyloggers, viruses, potentially unwanted programs, potentially unwanted application. This is where you get them when you download and install that software. Not from cookies and whatnot. Cookies are the last of your worries. It's when you download software. Now, one of the techniques that I use is that I research out, if I'm going to download a piece of software that I'm not sure, and if it's for free first thing is I always believe that you get nothing for free. So that's the first flag. So I'll take the time out and get on the forums and find out. And a lot of times that saves me a lot of grievances by doing that. So cookies themselves don't do any harm. So that was just a preamble, a quick preamble before starting the quick tutorial on how to clear your cache and how to install the Tor browser.
Using Safari on a Mac, I am going to show you how to clear the cache and how to change the default setting of privacy to privacy on. In the second part, I am going to show you how to get and install the Tor browser, which gives you almost 100% anonymity on your Mac. So let's launch our Safari browser. But before we start surfing the net, earlier I did clear my cache, so we are starting with a clean slate. I am starting my search using the browser's default of private browsing, which is set to off, so that each site that I visit, information from that site is going to be dumped into my cache, such as the web address, cookies, style sheets, JavaScripts, and so on. Now that I have researched and visited sites, I am going to see what has been downloaded into my cache. As mentioned earlier, the cache is a temporary storage place in a computing environment to improve the computer's efficiency for retrieving information. In Safari, it is easy to see the contents of the cache. Simply click on the Safari icon located on the upper left-hand corner of the browser. A drop-down menu will then appear. Now select Preferences and verify that you are on the Privacy tab, not some other tab. Click Manage Website Data, which will open a new window where you will be able to see all the sites that have downloaded their information into your computer's browser's cache. You can now scroll up and down the window to view all of the entries. And yes, there may be many. Now comes the big decision. Do you keep the information, remove the ones you don't want, or remove them all? Remember, with a browser, the cache allows the downloaded files to possibly improve the performance of the browser. Because the files are requested by the browser, they are stored in the browser's cache, so they don't have to be re-downloaded every time you visit the same site. So, removing all may slow down the performance of your machine, and you may have to retype your login information on some sites. So think twice before clicking on the Remove All button. For this demonstration, I cleared the cache, so I can now show you the differences between privacy set to on versus privacy set to the default value of privacy off. To turn privacy on, you must first click on the File menu, select New Private Window. Clicking on it will open a new window telling you that private browsing has been enabled, plus a little bit more information about the advantages of private browsing. This time around, I am going to repeat most of the earlier steps that I had did for browsing with privacy off, but this time with privacy enabled. You will see that no information will be downloaded into your cache. I repeat, by having privacy on, you may lose functionality of the built-in feature of your browser. Again, go to the Safari icon on the top left corner, click on it, and select Preferences from the drop-down menu. A window will once again open. Notice that you have additional options which you can choose from. They are pretty well self-explanatory, so there is no reasons for me to explain each option. Like before, click on Manage Website Data, and you will notice in the new panel that nothing has been downloaded into your cache. Close the window and you are now finished, and you can continue with your browsing with privacy setting set to on. Now we are going to look at getting the Tor browser and installing it on a Mac machine. If your online activity needs more privacy or anonymity, the Tor browser is the solution. Tor prevents others from monitoring your online activities. Traffic analysis cannot be performed on you while you are using the Tor browser. Essentially, you are invisible while you are online. To get Tor, use your favorite search engine. Type in Tor in either the address bar or the search bar. The results of your search should provide a link to the Tor site. Once you are on the Tor site, you will see a download button. Click on it and download it. Once it has downloaded, click on the download button. A vertical ribbon will then appear. Click on Tor Browser DMG icon to start the installation process. A download progress bar will open up, showing you the progress of the download. If after using Tor you like the product and your budget allows for it, consider making a donation to the cause. Back to the installation process. Once the installation has copied Tor to the application folder, Tor will be ready to use, so you can now close the window. To start Tor, click on the Launchpad icon. This will open the applications window and you will see that Tor has been installed. For easier access in the future, I have moved the Tor icon to the taskbar. I am first going to launch Safari to do a What's My IP without being anonymous. Type in the search bar, what is my IP, and it will give you your IP address, which is the address of your router. Law enforcers can use your IP to find out the location of the router. With that information, they can ask the Internet Service Provider, the ISP, for the information relating to your IP. I just did a who is on my IP, and this is the information that was provided. As you can see, it gives the source of the IP address, the name of the service provider, the registration date, and the location of the service provider. That is enough information for an enforcement officer with a court order to get all the information about you from your internet service provider. Now I'm going to fire up the Tor browser and do the same thing that I did with Safari, but this time my internet activity is done totally anonymously. However, a word of caution. If you are using a torrent client to download movies, music, and application software, Tor will not help you because these clients connect directly to the internet and not through Tor. If you're going to use a torrent client and you want to remain anonymous, then you will need to use a VPN, a virtual private network. I just did another who is with Tor, and this time it tells me my IP is 46.165.223.217, which obviously is not my IP. 46.165.223.217 is actually a website that is located in Frankfurt, Germany. So if you're a journalist, a social, political, and environmental activist, or an outright dissident, then Tor is the browsing tool to use if you need privacy and anonymity.
From the demonstration, you now know how to clear your cache and install Tor. But before clearing your cache, you have to make a decision whether you want to sacrifice the efficiency and the convenience that these cookies provide to you, to your browser. The biggest risk in revealing personal information is when you download software from the net. If you can't verify the legitimacy of the software, just don't download. That will save you a lot of grievances. One of the techniques that I've used, and I'm repeating myself because it's a point to remember. One of the techniques that I use before downloading any free software is that I do a search to find a forum that will talk about that software, and there you will find if it's spyware, malware, adware, whatever might be bundled with that software. You can get a lot of good information from these forums. The danger of downloading software, especially the ones that are free, is that they can be bundled with other software that you may not want. If you download this free software, check the license agreement and pay attention to every question that is asked. If you're going to download any software from the net, do your homework first and use a little common sense, and you should have no issues. And again, those cookies and what you have in your cache are basically inert. And if you do decide to erase the cache, delete the cache, well, you may sacrifice the functions of your browsers, meaning life might get a little slower for you. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this information will be beneficial for some of you. Thank you again.
Session terminated. Initializing shutdown.